What's up, summoners? King Blair here. Today we're going to be talking about the current banner heroes, Senya, Ervalen, as well as Little Queen Charlotte, and whether or not you should pull for them. So if you like the video, make sure you like, subscribe, and join the Discord server. Link down in the description. But without further ado, let's get right into the video. Since we do have a lot of heroes today, let me guys tell you how it's going to break down, and I will also be putting bookmarks so you can skip around and get to the sections that you want. So first, we're going to be talking about a summary and current state, what's coming in the future, what you need to watch out for. Then after that, we will go a short summary of all the heroes, and that will be included in the same bookmark. Then we'll go through each of the heroes, Senya, Ervalen, and lastly LQC, talking about their kits, where can you use them, kind of their stats like normal. And then at the very end of the video, if you're interested, I will be showing some Senya builds, as well as some of the gameplay, some of the teams I've been drafting with her, and some of the teams I've been drafting against, particularly in RTA, right? And I do have a video that you can go check out for testing. So I did do a lot of Senya testing, so if you want to see her in action, my personal Senya, I did do a video on her, and we'll talk about that as we get along the video. All right, with that out of the way, let's get to the summary and the current state. So it's almost there, y'all. It is almost there. The new collab is scheduled to be out in June, which is going to be next month. It is right there. It is probably like 4 to 6 weeks away, right? Realistically, probably around 6 weeks away from actually coming, or more like 5. So it is very close. And we also have to remember that in August, SSB should also be getting her rerun, assuming they stay to pattern, as well as Holiday Youthing. So there's all these limited units that are just around the corner. So please make sure you're being critical and make sure that you think you're going to be using the unit that you are pulling for and that you need them and that you have resources to get the limited units. There has never been a limited unit that didn't have some form of impact. Even the units like Baiken, they were still very good for PvE, and at the time they came out, were actually pretty good for PvP as well. There has never been a non-relevant limited hero, right? They always have made some form of impact, and having access to this hero is going to help your account progress a lot better, whether it's because of PvE or PvP, right? So regardless. So just know you have to be ready for that. Now, as far as the short summary of the heroes, so Senya, this is the new one that everyone wants to pull for because she looks like a waifu, right? She's a waifu character. Smage really knows when we're tight on those bookmarks and really wants us to pull, right? They really are trying to get you to pull. All in all, what I can say about her is people are ripping on her, but she's not actually bad. I've been using her a lot, and she's not like meta breaking or meta defining, but she's a good solid hero. If meta is S, right, like think Landy, Sten, if all those heroes are S and like Kisei is like an A, right, she'd be like a B. She's kind of on the same level as Charlotte, where you don't need Charlotte, and you're not gonna, Charlotte is not good in a lot of situations, but they can pop off in certain situations and are overall okay, right? So Senya is actually an okay hero, right? A lot of people say she's trash. She's not trash. She's just okay. But again, since there's a lot of stuff coming in the future, is it worth you pulling a unit that's okay? At the end of the day, if you're playing this game to have fun and you really like her design and you think you'll have fun with the kit, and we'll talk about the kit, then yeah, I would potentially say the summary would be to pull for her, right? She is really fun. I've been having a lot of fun using her, and she does function in primarily PvP. You'll be using her in Arena, Guild Wars, and RTA, right? So a lot of places you can actually use Senya as far as PvP, but has 0 PvE. So she's not that great for early game players, right? Because early game players not only are not going to have the gear that she requires, because she has some really wonky gear requirements, you're not going to have the Lilias to pair off with her to have like a really fun combo, and you're also not going to be able to use PvE, so you're not getting a lot of good mileage, right, out of your bookmarks. So overall, again, it is up to you if you want to save. She's just a good unit. Is she a waifu? Yes. Are you going to suffer if you don't pull for her? No. You can honestly skip and probably be okay. As far as Ervalen, this one I would just tell you guys to skip. I know some people really like Ervalen. Some people really like him because he's like a dude. And he is a dude and he's the villain. And a lot of guys do like him for that. And they also like the Shota, like the young looking men, right? Like they like that look. But as far as playability, he doesn't really have a PvP. Almost at all. I mean, you can use him for fun in Guild Wars, and he does okay in Guild Wars, and you can use him for Arena, and then he can do Banshee one-shot, right? But the thing about it is all those locations that I just mentioned, he's easily replaceable. So he's a very replaceable character. He doesn't really bring anything unique to the table. Had a lot of potential, but it's just like he's way too squishy. And we'll talk about that when we actually go through the kit. And then last but definitely not least, LQC. This is not going to be something limited. I would suggest waiting till next Wednesday to see what the new ML hero is going to be. So that's going to be in like 4 days. There's no reason that you need to pull now, right? You having the unit now versus having it in 4 days doesn't really matter. But LQC, if the next ML unit is something that does not impress you, LQC is an amazing unit right now. She probably is one of the best PvP boosters right now. She's extremely meta relevant and will only get better as new dark heroes are introduced. She has an amazing arena presence. There's a LQC cleave that can get you all the way to like legend basically in arena, where you use General Purgus, Last Order Crawl, Little Queen Charlotte, and then you have the fourth pick just depending on the situation. That team can pretty much get you to legend, right? That's how good, and LQC is the one that facilitates that because of the dunk. So overall, assuming that the next ML is not ridiculous, she's actually not a bad unit to pull with your Mystic Pity. Although, be warned, she is extremely hard to build. She is very gear hungry. You need to have a team around her, and a lot of early game players may not be able to get as much mileage out of her because she is going to be such a hard unit to gear. So overall, Senya, pull if you want. She's a fun unit. Kind of niche, but definitely can do some fun stuff, right? So it definitely looks like a waifu, right? So just from the waifu value, I personally pulled because of that, and I've been having fun with her. But not something that you need and has no PvE presence. Ervalen, I would just skip. And LQC, check until next Wednesday. But if you're at Pity, it's not a bad unit to pick up, right? And we know that the next rerun is going to be Ruel, and I honestly would almost pick LQC over Ruel, just thinking about it, right? So if the next ML is not ridiculous, I would personally, I'm going to use my summons for LQC, right? So I'm going to be trying to summon for LQC when the next ML gets released. But all right, enough about that. Let's actually go in through each of their kits, starting with the one that you probably came here for, which is going to be none other than Senya. And a lot of people have given her attention, and she's seen a lot of different builds that I'll show at the end of the video. So first, let's look at the stats. She has the single-handed highest attack stat in the game, higher than Gunther. It's the highest attack stat in the game. What does that count for? She combos really well with Lilius, right? And a lot of her kit is based off of attack. So that is, she's not too hard to build because she can't crit, right? So she doesn't have any crit or critical hit damage, but she does not need it, right? And she's on the slower side. And just decent defense and HP. Nothing crazy, but the attack being the highest stat in the game is one of the reasons people like her for things like Lilius. And you'll see that with the builds. You can easily get Senya. Like, you can get a tanky Senya with 5k, like decent speed, with 5k attack, or even up to 6k attack if you're trying to go for a slightly slower Senya, like 160 speed. You can get her to way higher attack, and she can do a lot of work with the bounce effect against cleave or with Lilius. It's pretty spicy, right? As far as the imprints, she gets more attack. Again, if you manage to pull more, you can get the attack even higher, which, like, again, she can get ridiculous attack, right? And her kit does base off the attack. So that's pretty unique. Not bad stats, and it's unique that she has the highest attack, right? There's no one that really matches what she does, right? Kind of like Gunther, right? She's a 5-star Gunther in that aspect. But now, as far as the kit. So the kit is actually super unique and super cool. The S1 has a 75% chance to provoke when it's not your turn. When it's your turn, sorry. When it is not your turn, you have a 100% chance. So why does this matter? Because we'll see later on, she gets a counter buff, which allows her to counter all the time. And since she's a knight, she has access to Elric Sword, where she can provoke a lot. The few times that I have used her in Guild Wars, she ended up with an Elric Sword. You can essentially perma-lock a team down. And it is very satisfying when you get one unit provoked. That unit is essentially provoked for the next 3 turns, assuming that they can't strip or stun your Senya. Because your Senya is going to have counterattack, and if they're provoked, they're going to hit her. They're going to proc her counterattack. She's going to counterattack on them. Oh, sorry, I showed the S3 early. By the way, I love this S3. But again, you can perma-lock, which is kind of cool. It's not reliable, but it's cool, right? Once you get that first provoke, if you get it off of an Elris or something, and you have that counter buff, you can essentially keep that unit provoked down for the full duration that she has the counter buff, assuming there's no 15%. Which, I mean, it was pretty fun. We actually got it a couple times on stream, and it does function the way you intended to. Then there's going to be the S2, which is probably the most unique skill. There's a lot of wording here, but there's only there's 2 things that really matter, and one of them that's just like, it's nice to have, but it's nothing crazy. So first, cannot critical hit. This makes it so she can have even higher attack because you don't have to worry about things like critical hit damage or critical hit rate. So all you need to worry about is attack, speed, defense, and HP, and effectiveness if you want to get more provokes, right? Mine has a little bit of effectiveness, although it's something that I'm considering changing later down the line. But I mean, that's one part. That's why she's like Gunther, and it comes with having the highest attack stat, right? And should already be included in her base stats, which this is why she has the highest attack, is because of this passive. Then the other part is she gets critical hit resistance by 50%. It's essentially the buff, and the buff does stack with this. Someone told me it was additive, which means you can theoretically have 100% critical hit resistance if you pair it with someone like Diani, except against fire. Fire always has 15% chance to crit on you, right? So Ravi, kind of a rough matchup for you, because while this does stop 50%, Ravi gets an extra 15%, which means that you actually have less against fire units, right? So critical hit resistance, I mean, it's not crazy, but it comes in handy, right? And then if they don't crit, you deal damage proportionate to your attack before activating Grace on the battlefield. So this one is every 2 turns, but this one is really fun, and it's like the most unique thing that Senya has. The only character that kind of has something similar is Dominiel, but it's not even close to as good as this one is. The Senya half, which is around 5k attack, is bouncing back almost 2k plus, right? And on squisher units, that's more. Against tanky units, it's like 1,600. Against squisher units, it's like 2,200. With attack buff, that goes up to like 2,600. So every time that a DPS does not crit on you, you are doing 2,600, 2,700 on them. And potentially, if you already have the counter buff, counterattacking on them. It's a lot of passive damage that people don't realize. It's a lot more than people make it out to be, right? It's one of those things that, like, it's not in your face, but over time, it starts stacking, right? It starts hurting. It starts making it so you're like, wait a minute, my units are about to die and I can't hit her anymore, or they might die, right? So it's a really unique skill and a really, really fun. Honestly, this is the one reason why I really like her, and there's no other unit that does anything like this, which makes it really unique. So that part, very, very fun. And then, of course, gets a buff when she gets hit by non-critical attack. And she has a really big buff, but it really does suck that they gave her increased effectiveness. It sucks when you get this buff, right? Because the other ones are pretty good, but this one is just so tragic. It's so tragic. I wish they had, I would have preferred if this was a cleanse, or if it was like a push-up or something. But, I mean, you can't complain about getting a buff every 2 turns. It can be really good against Cleave, right? Against Faithless Litica, if you're still struggling with that, she gets 50% critical hit resistance. You can mess up an F Litica, and you can also give your team a potential increased defense, stopping a Cleave, right? So it's not terrible for anti-cleaving. Not the best, because not everyone uses... A lot of people don't always use heroes that will hit Senya, or they will use strippers, right? So it's not something you'll get all the time, but if you do get, it can actually mess up a couple cleavers. And then just the fact that she does bounce damage can also mess up a cleaver's day, right? So pretty spicy. Not bad at all for stopping cleaves. And then at the S3, this one is a very basic S3, nothing crazy at all. Essentially, it's an AoE hit that decreases hit chance and gives you a counterattack stance. Pretty basic. The damage is not insane, but it's not bad either. That's like 3,000 to 4,000. It's good poke damage, right? It does like 3,000 to 5,000 on a 5k build, which is pretty nice, right? It will definitely do damage to squishy units. The only thing you have to watch out for, of course, is FCC barrier. The glancing hit, you may be wondering, why the heck does she have glancing hit on this S3? Well, that is because if she gets the glancing hit, that means they can't crit her. Because if a miss is a crit. And that is really nice against water teams because it can actually pop off. So, as far as Senya, also the S3 looks gorgeous, right? She definitely is a very nice looking unit. I love how good she looks. I love the design. I love how heavy the S1 feels. She looks amazing. I love the look. She's definitely a top tier waifu, and I definitely pulled partially because of that, and also because of how unique this S2 is, right? This S2 is just so fun. It's honestly my favorite part. As far as Senya, why is she not meta, but why do I think she has some potential? Why is she not meta? Well, the fact that this is not 100%, there's a chance that they will crit on you, right? If they crit on you, you don't do damage. I had a fight that I'll show you guys the record at the end when I'm showing the builds that I lost because the C side proceeded to hit me 5 times in a row and crit me all 5 times. Right? So not having that consistency does hurt a little bit. It's one of the ways that Smilegate likes to balance stuff. It's like not making consistent, which is something that's really annoying, but it's something that they do, right? And that's how it's kind of one of the ways that they make Senya not as good, is the consistency issues. The other thing is, like, you're usually relying on Elris Sword to land that first provoke if you want to do the provoke lock with the counter set. And since you're decently slow, you typically won't get use of this counter attack mechanic until you take your turn, right? And that's usually after the team takes their turn. So it does have some decently high speed requirements if you're really trying to do some stuff with this counterattack. And if you're going early, that means they have immunity buff, right? So that's some things that stop her from being amazing, right? Immunity buff kind of messes her up turn 1. Then you don't really do anything if you're not getting turn 1. You kind of just sit there because they have immunity anyway. And then you set up the S3. And then by then, maybe they have ways to like stun her, right? Since she'll lose her own immunity. I really wish this skill had given her immunity as well to make her really, really good. But it didn't. Which Now that just puts her at an okay spot. Where can you use her? Against any team that doesn't have high DPS or has a lot of water units, right? So if they're trying to cleave you, if they have a tanky team but almost no DPSs, right, which a lot of situations that does happen, you can take her. And I will be showing some of the drafts that I personally took her in RTA. And in Guild Wars, again, if you want to watch her in action, I highly suggest you watch this video where I did all the Senya testing. I did her in Arena, Guild Wars, RTA. I did a pretty good variety, right? So you'll get to watch her in Guild Wars. So I did get to do a lot variety on Senya. But that's enough for Senya. We've spent way too long on this one hero. So let's keep going to the other ones that we still have to talk about. So next is going to be Ervalen. And this one is going to be quite a fast one because he has been around for a long time. So as far as Ervalen, he has the same sign as Violet, I believe. So pretty good speed, really good HP, really good attack, atrocious defense, and okay crit rate, right? And he does awaken into crit rate, which does allow him to get more damage, right? But that defense is one of the things that actually stops him from being a lot better. And we'll see with this kit, right? So the S1, nothing really insane, but it is kind of nice. Decreased defense. I mean, that's always nice, 50%. The only thing is that you're not going to be using the skill very often. And we'll see why in a second. So again, not bad. US1, you decrease defense, right? Not crazy. Cecilia has this. Mort has this. So there's other units that have this. Nothing unique. Then there's going to be the X2, which is going to be that attacks the enemy repeatedly and grants the caster immunity. This part is pretty nice. And when the enemy's health is greater than yours, you also get a combat readiness boost. Right, so this one you won't, again, you're not going to see it as much because, as we mentioned, he has atrocious defense. He will almost never see a turn 2. Almost never, right? Unless you're using Oxlots. And some people do like to use him in Guild Wars with an Oxlots, since he can have a pretty fun combo with Oxlots. And then, of course, there's going to be the S3 that when you attack the enemy, you again get a counterattack stance. So similar to Senya, you get the counterattack stance, and you also get a barrier that is pretty nice. Right? Because I believe it is proportionate to the caster's attack. Yeah. So the barrier is proportionate to the caster's attack. So you do get a pretty nice barrier. And since he does have a pretty good attack stat, you can actually get a pretty thick barrier. And you do get that counter attack buff. Right? Which is really, really cool. And again, when the enemy has higher health than you, you do damage proportionate to the difference up to 60%. So this skill does do a ton of single target damage against tanks. And you can also get an extra turn. So if you soul burn this, you get to do the S3. You go in, you bop them with the Ervalen S3, and you get a barrier and a counter attack buff. What's really cool about this is since you soul burn and you get the extra turn, if you use this on a unit like an Arbiter Vildred, you can actually take out Arbiter Vildred twice, right? And even if you don't kill him, you have a barrier and counter attack buff, right? So pretty good against certain Arbiter Vildred defense. We'll melt Ruels, right? So there's some Guild Wars that's like Crawl Ruel and then like another unit, like Stenner or something. Well, you can use Ervalen and you can one-shot the Ruel with this S3 because you do so much extra damage against tanks, right? So that's one of the reasons people do like to use him a lot in Guild Wars. And he does see some decent success in Guild Wars. In Arena, it's a lot harder because there's a lot of Politis and you can't really set up before that. If you don't get this barrier, you're getting deleted. You have no defense. One hit will probably kill you, right? So that's one of his biggest weaknesses is that he easily dies. He doesn't self-attack buff either. So you need to give him an attack buffer and you need to give him some support so he doesn't get one shot, right? So pretty hard to build, and it's one of the reasons he's usually just using some Guild Wars cleave. The other place is going to be Banshee. Since for Banshee, you can actually use the S3 to one-shot, right? Because you'll be able to use this S3 since you do a lot of extra damage, you can kill. But again, there's units like Baiken that can do the Banshee one-shot a lot easier, and there's also Green Mouse that essentially almost has a little bit higher gear requirements, but it's the exact same thing, right? So it's one of those things that's like, for Banshee, there's better options, and for Guild Wars, it's like there's also probably better options for taking out Ruels, right? Like there's Senya, who also gets a barrier, who gets her own attack buff, so you can actually bring her in different types of cleaves. So there's not a great character, not like he's not great, right? He's definitely very skippable. Can you use him? Absolutely. You can use him in Guild Wars, you can use him in Arena in certain situations, and you can use him in Banshee. I know some people really like him. There's some people that have tried him with speed builds and have mild success in RTA, like by building him very fast. But again, not getting attack buff makes it hard for a speed build, and having that extra setup usually RTA units that are not self-sufficient or don't have an insane, essentially like win condition, if you get them to go first, usually don't see a lot of success, right? So if they're not self-sufficient and don't have an S3 that just changes the pace of the game absolutely, they're not going to see that much RTA relevance. So Ervalen is one of those units he's a very dependent unit, which is why he's not using RTA that much. And PvE, you're only using him for Banshee one shot, and you can use him for Guild Wars and Arena for a decent extent. And then last, but definitely not least, this is probably another one I'm going to be here for some time, is going to be Little Queen Charlotte. Now, something I will say is go to the Discord for builds. In the top unit build section of the Discord, which is linked down in the descriptions, you can find a lot of LQC builds in the Warrior top unit builds, as well as a lot of members in that Discord do have LQCs, very good LQCs built. I will forewarn you by saying she is not an easy unit to build. She's extremely difficult to build and requires a ton of really good gear, right? So just warning, she's a hard unit to build. A lot of people think LQC is like easy peasy, easy dubs, right? No, she's a unit that takes investment but gives it back. So let's actually look at the kit and why she's one of the best bruisers right now, and why honestly you should consider pulling for her. Of course, wait till next week till they release the next ML hero and you'll know what it is and you can decide. So as far as stats for a warrior, she is not bad, right? She doesn't have any crit rate help, which is one of the reasons she's so hard to build. She doesn't have any crit damage help either, which is one of the reasons she's so hard to build. The HP and defense are okay, right? They're like knight level, right? They're not bad. The speed is not terrible. She's not a turtle, but she's not super fast, right? She's one speed faster than Bazaar. And then the attack is pretty okay, right? Nothing insane, right? We've seen a lot of really high attack units with like 1.2k for Ervalen and like 1.4k for Senya. This one, nothing crazy, right? So not bad though. Pretty solid stat line, all well-rounded, right? And then of course the imprint is going to be defense, which will make her a lot tankier, right? So LQC is a bruiser. You don't want her getting one shot by Spectre Tenebrious, right? So let's actually look at the kit and what you need to do. So as far as the S1, it's a very self-sufficient skill. It just gives the caster immunity, right? If you use this S1, boom, immunity. Why is this so good? Think of the current meta. General Purgus, a Tywin, Troublemaker Crosset, right? All these units that can potentially stun you and lock you down. Cerise, right? They are not going to be able to lock you down because you can theoretically have permanent immunity since you give yourself immunity every turn. It comes in handy more than you think, right? But besides that, it's just damage. It's a very selfish skill. It doesn't set up anything else for the team. It just does damage and gives her, and doesn't set up any debuffs. It just gives herself immunity, which is really good because she has permanent immunity, right? So unless they have multiple strips or have follow-ups to the strippers, she's not going to be getting debuffed very often, right? So that part is really clutch. And one of the reasons she's actually has a really good matchup against even a Tywin, right, is because of that S1. Then you have the passive, which is really loaded. She gets a built-in adamant shield. Why is this significant? You get to bring a bruiser that is LQC, and you get to bring a adamant shield. That's amazing, right? It's 1% less than adamant shield, but like, is it? Yeah, it's 1% less than adamant shield, I believe. But it's so worth it. You get to bring a DPS while still having your knight artifact, which means you only need one other knight with Aureus, and you already have the double damage mitigation, right? So just bringing LQC is already filling the slot for one of your knights, which lets you bring damage as well as still staying tanky. That is ridiculous. The other part is she gets a enhanced adamant shield, getting a 30% damage reduction. That's crazy. It makes her really hard to take out, especially if there's an Aureus on board. If there's an Aureus on board along with LQC, it gets really hard to actually get rid of her because of this built-in 30% damage reduction. Then, of course, the adamant shield for the rest of the team. The other part is when you get hit with a critical hit, you also get 15% CR push. So think Ravi's passive, but with a restriction, right? So she has Ravi's passive in that she gets the CR, and she has an adamant shield passive. It's a very strong passive. It is very good. Lets your team stay alive longer, lets her stay alive longer, and it's just really good, right? It's so good, right? Just being able to have that adamant shield as well as getting CR push if they crit on you, making it scary for them to hit you with AoEs. And then we have her S3, which is the reason why everyone pulls for her. It's a single target damage skill that penetrates the target's defense by 50%. But when it is a dark hero, and when you start thinking, who's a dark hero? Fallen Cecilia, Troublemaker Crosette, Emo Ken, a Ravi, right? There's a lot of dark units that are meta. Primarily Troublemaker Crosette and FCC. Think of Arena. FCC is everywhere, right? So you're getting extra damage on that FCC because she's a dark elemental hero, and you're also getting a massive splash damage based on your attack to all other enemies if it's a dark hero. And at the worst, you have a massive S3 that decreases that penetrates the defense by 50% and can take out most squishy units in this game, right? So if it's not a dark hero, you probably one-shot them because it's a massive, really good S3, right? If it's a dark hero, you get a huge dunk that does damage based on your attack. And I've seen this dunk do like 8 to 9k with an attack buff. That will almost kill things like Stennis, right? That will almost kill Stennis. That will almost kill most things, honestly. It just sets you up for just executing with one more hit, right? So this S3 is just ridiculously strong, right? With just having the splash damage. And it's single target, but it becomes AoE. When you think of something like Troublemaker Crosette, because Troublemaker Crosette is sharing damage 40%, he's taking the full S3, which is extra damage, penetrate 50%, and then he's taking 40% of the splash damage that the other unit in the backline will receive. This essentially takes Troublemaker Crosette out the gate, right? So you have a unit that is not only tanky, but can one-shot units and put a ton of pressure on the opponent. That is ridiculously powerful, and is one of the reasons why LQC is one of the best bruisers. Because again, it is extremely hard to take down, especially if you have something like Sigurd Scythe, where she'll just heal forever. Oh yeah, the S3 also, I believe, heals, right? Oh, she doesn't heal on the S3, actually. Oh no, she does recover. Yeah, she recovers health on top of that, right? So she's a hard to take down bruiser that has an Adamant Shield passive, has self buff with the S1 giving her immunity, has an S3 that dunks the opponent, kills one of their dark units almost out the gate, and does a ton of damage to the rest of the enemy, and then you can't take her out easily. And you want to know the best part? This skill is back up every 3 turns. If you soulburn this skill, you use the S3, you use an S1, there's one more turn and you already have S3 again. This S3 is so pressuring, right? If you don't take out LQC fast in a fight, you will lose the fight, right? So where would you use her? Guild Wars, she's amazing, right? FCC's everywhere. She can just dunk FCC. You bring Bazaar, her, and some other unit, and all those FCC defenses, dead. All those Troublemaker Crosset defenses, dead, right? Just because you're dunking them, right? Because they decided to use a dark unit. In Arena, FCC's everywhere. You use her with General Purgus to give her an attack buff to make this splash a lot better, and you use Last Rider Crawl to pick off the rest of the units, and your 4th unit can be another DPS or a Bazaar if you would like to take off the barriers, right? So you have a lot of different options in that aspect, but usually it's LQC, Last Rider Crawl, and General Purgus to get attack buff, to get an AoE attack, and to get a bunch of damage with LQC. And you essentially just win almost all games off of that alone in Arena, right? That's like the most popular legend level cleave at this point, and what a lot of legend players use right now, because you just dunk the FCC and there's nothing they can do about it. And then for Guild War, for RTA, I mean, if they're to have a dark unit, bring LQC. She also does really good against Arbiter Vildred, because if you soulburn this S3, you can soulburn the skill, kill an Arbiter Vildred with it, do a bunch of splash damage, and then do an S1 and potentially kill them again if they have no damage mitigation. Or you just get immunity and you don't get the glancing hit. And then if you have Secret Sight, you just heal back to full. So again, LQC is one of the most disgusting bruisers out right now in the game, and she is absolutely amazing. I would highly suggest you get her if you have the resources to do it. But now, as far as the Senya build and some other stuff that you can see, I'm going to show you guys my personal Senya build as well as some other builds that are out there, so you guys know that these exist. And that are pretty good as well. And I looked at them and I was like, oh, that looks really nice. So my Senya, I wanted to get a faster Senya, which is why the attack is not ridiculously high. But I can also fix a lot, right? She's not optimized. She's only been out for 1 day. She has two not even level 85 pieces, right? There's a lot of room for her to grow. And she already does a lot of work, right? I mentioned 1.6k on tanky units with the Reflect that scales with Frenzy. And it's just pretty nice, right? So that's this build. I really like it. Another build is going to be the damage build that you primarily would use with Lilius. So this one has a much higher attack percentage than mine, a little bit less speed, but he's more there for having the high attack, high reflect value, right? So you don't really care if you do your S3 or not. You just want to do a bunch of damage off of your S2. And then you have a Lilius, a critical hit damage Lilius, go right after your Senya and just bop a team, right? So it's a really cool build. And again, you can watch all of these in the Discord. They are there for your viewing. So Senya, really, really fun unit. As far as how I have used her in RTA, I can show you guys how I've used it. Again, she does really well into teams that don't have DPS, right? I almost had a 100% win rate with her. So we were in champion. We won against this team. Again, he had almost no damage, so Senya just did a lot of work, as well as the rest of my team, of course. Same thing with the second team. Again, that was the first team I showed. Very similar teams, actually. I think almost the exact same teams. Yeah, it was almost the exact same teams, except this one had Tempest Surin, which again, she didn't really do much, right? Can't really reach my Stene, or can't kill the Stene through like an FCC, and then the Senya kind of just does way too much poke damage. What ended up happening is the Senya Reflect, as well as the Ravi counterattacking, it just killed the T-Surin, right? So it was a super easy game. Then this one, again, no damage. He did have the Landy, but it didn't really matter, right? Because we were just easily able to do poke damage to the rest of the team. And we got her to a point with the S3 that we were able to finish the job off with the Crow, right? So again, very, very easy. Nothing super hard. Again, and the last one was this one, which was against the Seaside that I lost because the Seaside hit me 5 times, which shows that Senya does have some RNG aspects to it. This fight would have been very winnable, but the Seaside hit the crits and critical hit damage 4 times in a row, right? There's nothing you can do about that. RNG will always get you, but it sucks that he got the perfect RNG 5 times in a row, and that's why we lost this one. And I think we had one more victory with Senya, and then I hadn't used her since then. But again, against a team with very little DPS, they're just going to kill themselves on Senya. The Arbiter Vildred just killed himself on the Ravi and the Senya, and I just won the fight from there, right? So typically, I've been bringing her with a lot of Bruiser teams, and it works pretty well, right? The Bruiser teams have been working really, really well with Senya, since she can actually pop off with the S2. Again, you can also use Lilius and Rose, and there's some really cool cleaves out there that can function as well with this unit. But that is going to be it for today's video. I know it was a long one. Hopefully this gives you a better idea on all the different units and whether or not you want to pull for them. But that is all I got for you guys today. I will see y'all next time. Peace.